Artemus Toast here, and it's been a while since I've done one of these. The all kinds of awesome trademark album review, recommendation, whatever. I have magical ears of honey. Once again, to reiterate things I've said in the past. So that's why I like to offer my, being in the musical, industry for 4+ decades. I like to provide my, my educated opinion on matters regarding to music, such as albums. I'm excited about today's or tonight's all kinds of awesome album review because to be quite honest, the pit bull over there was making a little bit of noise. Be quiet there, killer. Um, everything begins, or using plants as an example. They begin with a seed. That term is also used, in regards to thoughts as well. As a simile for having an idea, and it grows from there. Much like a seed. So there's that relation. In and that goes for rock and roll too. I'm not gonna get into arguments and discussions as this originated here, this originated there, this particular thing originated at this particular location. You know, there's really no way to actually identify where. Obviously, different genres from regions, that, you know, but in regards to rock music, as a whole, these days there are just many genres and subgenres. There's all kinds of rock, but it had to start someplace, and in my all kinds of awesome trademark album review. Relates very much to that, and it's an opinion that's shared by, many people over many decades within the rock and roll, community in general. If you talk to those great, rock musicians that come out of Great Britain in the '60s, a lot of times you'll hear them talk about their inspiration, and they'll talk for the most part, especially a lot of blues inspiration, and they heard a friend of theirs had a Muddy Waters record, or they got their, the seed was planted, somehow, and once again you'll hear a lot of those '60s British artists talk about they were inspired by, American blues music, particularly Delta blues. You talk to, a lot of those like level 10 guitarists, and level 14 guitarists, such as myself, that is kind of, at least a lot of our shared opinions, the birth of so many forms of the rock and roll that we enjoy today, which sorry to digress, but once again the artist and actually the artist is mainly who I'm focusing on, and that's Robert Johnson. If it's a name that you don't know, and you like music, you like rock and roll music, you like blues music, you like music in general, highly recommend listening to some of his work. A lot of you folks have in one way or another heard a lot of his work, just made by other musicians. This. There's a lot of mystery behind Robert Johnson, which is another all kinds of awesome thing. He's he's like a ghost, you know, or a myth or a fable or a legend, you know, in regards to you know, his life on this earth, you know. He died very early, you know, 27, you know, he's like the original member of the 27 Club, you know, in regards to music, I guess you could say, you know, with the Janis Joplins and the Jimi Hendrixes and the Kurt Cobains, you know, who passed away at the age of 27. So did maybe it's another seed that was planted, you know, in his life and death. You know, if you're a music fan, rock and roll fan, blues fan, but once again, just a music fan in general, you know, or you know, an urban legend, you know, if you have any interest in that, you know, there's also a legend in regards to, you know, Robert Johnson. You know, he sold his soul to the devil to master the guitar. So it's another one of those cool, like, mystique things about him. You know, he exists. You know, it's not like the Bigfoots or something where, you know, there's not tangible, you know, physical evidence. You know, it's all hearsay. You know, a blurry picture. You know, though Robert Johnson is a legend. You know, people seen him on this earth. You know, there are two known photographs of him in his recordings. You know, he actually recorded in Texas. You know, in November 1936, which is actually kind of ironic. I'm looking at the date. You know, the dates it fell between the 23rd and 27th of November. You know, shoot, 80 years ago this week. That's kind of all kinds of awesome and coincidental, I may say. But once again, you know, he wasn't real famous when he was alive, you know. So this isn't, you know, this is a remaster of his 1936 and 1937 recordings. A lot of the recordings are the same songs, you know, which became kind of blues staples, you know, after he died in 1937, I believe. You know, there's records of him, you know, along with the photographs, you know, the master recordings. This was actually this album itself, you know, from a thesaurus of classic jazz series. Robert Johnson, King of the Delta Blues Singers, released by Columbia. This was released in 1961. It was the first collection of it's kind of his greatest hits, you know, after he, you know, passed away 20 plus years ago. I guess word of mouth of his legend, and which brings me to, you know, another thing. I'll talk a little bit about the songs as well, but you know, you know, even you know, if you listen to, you know, the Rolling Stones and Eric Clapton's, you know, they've redone some of his songs. You know, Robert Clapton singing Crossroads. You know, that was his take of a Robert Johnson song. You know, once again, you know, Keith Richards was you know, of the Rolling Stones, was once quoted as saying that, you know, the first time he heard Robert Johnson, you know, recording, he thought it was multiple guitarists, you know, which talks a lot about, you know, for being 27 years old, you know, his playing style and technique were just unmatched, you know, then and you know, since, really, you know, with anything, it starts somewhere and it, you know, it expands and it grows, you know, better or greater or more complicated, or it's just the nature of things. But it has to start somewhere, and the fact that very popular opinion, which I agree with, it started with Robert Johnson. Being innovative with the guitar, dark and, well, I mean, blues music, emotional, lyrics, and his vocal style was really, really unmatched at the time, or I guess it's all in retrospect, is what it. Those are the days before the interwebs and the YouTubes, and the mass spread through social media. This was long before those times. Acts got known by traveling, and playing live, and and hopefully getting on the radio, and it spread greater that way. Not like it is now. Something go viral like that. I mean, it could be a woman laughing in a Chewbacca mask, like recently. You never know where the fire is gonna burn. On the interwebs. But it could happen like that. But once again, back in the days, playing the blues in the Delta in Mississippi, it wasn't until after he already passed that his work became greatly appreciated, and once again, it helped with the creation of this album in 1961. Which at that time was the format to reach a mass audience with music, and fortunately that even this album, released in 1961, planted a seed in the heads of aspiring musicians who then wanted to pick up a guitar and wanted the play their blues music, or play there's a lot of blues staples as well, and once again, a lot of them originated with the legendary, mythical Delta blues player known as Robert Johnson. But once again, I can't talk enough about this album, to be perfectly honest. I could spend hours, talking about it, but I want to keep the video short enough that people will watch it, hopefully. But once again, Robert Johnson, all kinds of awesome. Perhaps the seed which made me, that eventually grew into a tree with many branches, that in some form or fashion inspired me and countless others to aspire to be a musician. I think it started here. The MP3s, if you could find the vinyl, the YouTubes, highly recommend listening to some Robert Johnson songs. Terraplane Blues, I highly recommend. Crossroads Blues, I highly recommend. Let's see, Preaching Blues, highly recommend. Me and the Devil Blues, that's a great song. But all of them, not a lot of recordings of them. They're all worth listening to. Short songs, but all kinds of awesome. Follow me on the Twitters. Artemus Toast out.